Why do vampires love lollipops? Well, because they're suckers. What's going on, YouTube? It is Tuesday after 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which means we have our 3 weekly vendor refreshes. Feel free to use the timestamps below because we start inside the Infinite Archive to go over our 3 weekly vendors. Now, we start with Filer because he's got some juice. Now, anytime you have yourself an antiquity lead, it's always good to see where does this come from and what is it for. So this is part of the blacksmithing stand, so relatively straightforward, but unfortunately it just comes from world bosses in Westworld. The nice thing is world bosses in Westworld, while they are a little bit more difficult because they have more health than your average world boss, they're still getting decently farmed, so not something you really need to really focus on buying for yourself. In the same vein is the Writhing Vine Mass, another 5,000 Archival Fortune one, but this one just comes from a Delve boss. Now this one does give you the Barkroot Blessing, which is a pretty cool looking skin in my opinion, but one that it does have quite a few pieces that you need to do for it. Thankfully, most of these, again, are, relatively straightforward, Delve bosses, etc. Some of them are going to be a little bit more annoying, but none of the other ones are in store for us. We ain't got to worry about those. Next up is this Shadow Rend style page. Now, this one's a bit annoying because, we don't have any pricing data for it, so not ideal when it comes to getting a sort of idea as to how valuable it is. You can see it's smaller, it's got the scale vibes to it. Some people really like that kind of one shoulder with some scales on it. It's very hard to say how valuable an item like this would be, just because it's not currently on the actual vendor, but it's going to be one that will be back at some point. So it's not like just because it's not listed anywhere doesn't mean you need to go absolutely purchase it. If you're, somebody who's like, Jake, I'm a collector, I like to own every style page, it will be back, it will be farmable. It's probably worth a couple 100,000 gold, maybe between 1 to 2 million gold, just based on how rare it is. But again, not from anywhere exceptionally difficult, and will likely be decently farmed once it's back in store. Then we have our consumable BPs. Now again, these are consumables, these are bind-on pickups. You're like, Jake, 41,000 gold for this high elf divider delicate, and some people were selling it for 300k gold. Some silly goober bought it for that much. The problem with an item like this is, again, they're bound. So the actual recipes, here's a cute cat though for you guys, by the way, who's trying to join the video. Yep, trying to join this video. Is that, again, you have to, this is the diagram's value, not the actual furnishing pieces value. So you could sell the furnishing pieces, but it's going to cost you heartwood, grain solvent, and other stuff, and it's not going to sell the actual pre-made furniture piece for anywhere near the amount of the BP. And selling furniture can be a little bit difficult inside of ESO. If you were tempted, though, buy one this weekend, I would say Necrom Window is probably going to be the one that's more tempting. 212,000 gold is certainly a really good range for 2,000 Archival Fortunes, significantly better than 41,000, and then obviously the Orcus Tapestry, 18k, really worth skipping, obviously. And we have our Northern treasure maps and then our jewelry. So Northern Elsewhere treasure maps, not super good. The sets there are fairly decent, but if you want treasure maps from there, you could just buy them with gold. Nobody's really selling them for a lot. Companion equipment is a good gamble if you don't have a lot of jewelry pieces already. If you're like, Jake, I need a ring and a necklace, because at least you're getting a usable piece of with traded stuff. Because, for example, let's say you were to roll on weapons, well, you might get the trait you need, but you might not get on the weapon you need. Everybody needs rings and necklaces, and the nice thing is you might also get a trait alongside it, versus if you were to gamble on weapons, as an example, then you might get a sword with the healing trait, and therefore you've got really nothing that you can use, versus at least if you get a healing trait on a ring, even if you're not making a healing companion, you still got something that you could use down the road. And we have our 2 books. Yep, these are the Parables of St. Voorhees. Then we have Berserk, Bleed Damage, Immobilized Crusaders, Defiance. None of these are worth Archival Fortunes. We're going to have a second vendor here very shortly that will have tons of scripts that you can buy for gold. I would only consider those right now, and I would only buy them with gold or just farming daily quests. And then we finish with our trophies. We've talked about the Archival Enigmas a bajillion times. They just give you a face art. We have the Fragment of the Fate Eater, which is super easy to get. You literally just need to kill a world boss, so not worth the 1,000 bad boys there. And then we have the Sigil Globe, which you can see is worth 3,998 gold. So not a lot of value considering some of the stuff that we saw above was, worth about 200,000 Archival Fortunes, to gold. Here we're at about 4,000 gold to 3,000 archival forges. You can see there's a little bit of a difference in value. And next up, we're inside the Scholarium, which is inside of Ivea, which somebody asked where that was. It's right over here in the left side of the map. And you head on in and talk to the Chronicler, and the items down here are rotational. So we have Interrupt, Poison Damage, Class Mastery. This one is here every week, requires an achievement, and Knight's Valor. Now, I always encourage people to buy the ones that they don't have, just because it's nice to guarantee if you don't have a script, you want to be a completionist on your first character with them, buy the ones that you don't have. It's only a little bit of gold. To me, though, the ones that really jump out at me is probably Poison Damage and Knight's Valor, but none of these are very essential for most characters. You know, yes, I've tried some fun little interrupt mechanics for a PvP build that does like mass interrupt, but generally, none of these are going to be ones that I'm like, everybody run to the vendor if you're this type of player and get this item. They're decent, but not essential. But they're still worth considering if you're interested, especially if you're trying to complete your first character and you don't have all of these. And now we find ourselves with our final vendor inside the Imperial City sewers. If you need help finding any of these vendors, ESOhelper.com, the website that we made. And we talked to this bad man pajama over here, the Telvar merchant, and we have a rotational set of items. These ones, we start with Telvar, obviously. And what's interesting about these first ones is their sets. Now, the sets here are actually pretty cool. Shadow Walker is actually used by a surprising amount of people in this meta of like using stealth and then going into stealth either through stage 4 vampirism, invisibility pots, and then just stopping to move, restoring tons of health and stamina, and being able to go back into the fight very quickly. This is a set that I've wanted to experiment more with, but I've tried to figure out like what's the best utilization for it. But the fact that people are using this on gank builds, I don't necessarily know what my personal opinion would be, but it looks like it's fairly decent, and from what I've seen, the amount of resources that you can get back is relatively high, and so I would give this, you know, an 8.5 out of 10. It's a fantastic set. Don't buy it with Telvar, obviously. It's a super cheap set, so you could just buy it with gold. But if you want to try a set like this, where you use invisibility to get quickly back into the fight, either using Invis Pots, obviously using the Nightblade line, or Stage 4 Vampirism, this could be a set for you. Willpower is the next set. This is just a set that's just generically one of the best 3-piece sets. I don't know if you do that to give it a 10 out of 10. You're certainly not buying it with Telvar. Yes, it is a 10 out of 10 set. It's probably one of the best Marking Ring builds that you can make with it, but like you're not going to like actually go out and buy this for 100k Telvar. It's one of the cheapest sets in the game because it's been out for so long. It's all over the market. If you want to make a 3-piece set build with it that utilizes the Marking Ring, what's the Marking Ring do, Jake? It just gives you bonuses for how many 3-piece sets you're wearing, so you're more incentivized to not use 5-piece sets. You're more incentivized to use 3-piece ones, and that's kind of what the flavor of the week would be if you're interested in doing that. And you can see there's different versions with different traits: healthy, arcane, and robust. Doesn't really make a huge difference, but that is an option if you were to purchase this, but obviously never purchase this for 100k Telvar. Now, next up is one of the best mythics that you can get for PvP, but there's a slight bit of an issue here, and that is the Carved Signet base. Now, it comes from the Death Dealer's Feet Leaf, which is one of the best PvP mythics. You gain a stack of escalating feet every 2 seconds you're in combat, up to 30 stacks, and then every time you increase your stacks, you gain stamina, health, and magicka by 88. So you're increasing your total of those resources. For those of you who are a bit confused, every 2 seconds you're in combat, you gain health, stamina, and magicka. And then as you leave combat, every 4 seconds, you go away. But there's the infinite combat bug glitch, so you're pretty much always in combat. It's a great mythic because of that. And even if it wasn't, you weren't always in combat, it would still be a great mythic. The issue is that this lead specifically comes from Imperial City upstairs bosses. So if you can afford 25k Telvar, you probably can also go kill Imperial City upstairs bosses, maybe with the exception if you got a lot of like, you know, mid-year mayhem boxes that gave you Telvar, but you're really just farming, you know, Cyrodiil, and you don't really like the Imperial City. Imperial City's not very popular for most people. There's also login rewards for Telvar, golden pursuits for Telvar. So then you might want to consider purchasing it. I do really love Death Dealer's Feet. It's a bit out of meta right now with how max stat builds aren't as popular as they were pre-subclassing, but I definitely think this is going to be a mythic that we'll see a comeback in the future because it's always been very good, just because increasing your resources, max health, max stam, max magicka, is just great to do, and there's always going to be value in that. Next up is a weird one. It's Rune Scribed Braces. Now, this is part of a 5-piece for Savara's Bane's Ward. Now, this normally comes from Shipwright's Regret's final boss, which, to be fair, is not a long dungeon compared to some of the other dungeons that you could have to farm for a mythic. But The question is do you need this mythic? And the majority of people will not need a mythic like this. So while actively bracing, create a 12-meter zone of protection, but you can no longer move. Group members, though, within that zone increase the amount of damage they can block by 30%, and their health recovery is increased by 950. So you could see how this would be a mythic that like is used in really weird scenarios, and the health recovery can't even affect yourself. So you're kind of out just there, just being a bit of a martyr, bracing, and hoping for the best for everybody else. There will be situations for a mythic like this. It's a support mythic, obviously, so if you find yourself being a little bit of a support hooligan, that's fine. But if you are being a support hooligan, just go farm Shipwright's Regret. It's one of the best dungeons out there to get sets from, so why would you just go farm the dungeon? But it is a dungeon set, or it is a dungeon lead, which some people really do like to purchase. Glenumbra treasure maps, as you can imagine, are hot crossed buns, unable to be very good. Also, fun fact about me, I struggle to sit hot crossed buns because my legs are very tall. Fun little fact for you. We have the rings of the sets we talked about earlier. Then we also have scripts. Now, scripts for Telvar is another thing that kind of perturbs me because I think that the value is too much. So, for example, Defile, Generate Ultimate are great scripts, but 15k Telvar? Then it would have to be a really, really good script for that. And Defile, like, is so meta prevalent in a lot of PvP scribing abilities, but it's hard to suggest that you go out and spend 10k Telvar. Just do some daily quests, honestly, at that point. So for me, yes, these scripts are good, but the problem is that even though they see utilization and content that you may do, it's hard to recommend because Telvar is such a premium currency that you're better off just, instead of farming, you know, the Telvar that it takes, and this is the reduced amount, if you already have it unlocked on a character, you're better off probably just farming some daily quests and hoping for the best. And then if you get a duplicate script, you just sell it back for 1,000 gold. And we finish on a random fragment. This bad mamma jamma is going to be relatively straightforward for you. It's the fragment of Renewal, and it comes from just a public dungeon boss. If you're interested, though, it slightly affects annulment, which is not a very utilized skill, in my opinion. But thankfully, if you want to do the whole thing, it's not really necessarily difficult to do. So, would not buy it for Telvar, but you could purchase it, or you could go do it, rather, and not really feel a whole lot of stress. But if you're interested, I think the best item are the two mythics, mostly the carved signet base, just because I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And then I think to myself, 25k Telvar without having to farm Imperial City upper bosses, because at the end of the day, even if you are farming Telvar, and this has been my experience when I needed to farm leads that come from here, is that you'll oftentimes find yourself in a situation where you want to get final bosses up there, you know, the ones that are the roaming bosses, and then they're already dead, and you're constantly just running in a circle. You can't find them, then you're fighting gankers and people who are invisible and people in stupid werewolf builds, and then you're getting zerged, and it can be kind of annoying to go farm them, especially if you go up with the intention to just kill those bosses, because there's a lot of leads that come specifically from those chunky boys, and it can be very frustrating, especially if you don't have a group to do it with. So for me, this is the item of the week. I would also consider, obviously, the furnishing pieces that were worth the significant amounts of gold. But everyone, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What items do you think were the best this week? I think it's probably got to be the carved signet base, but it could also be those furnishing items for you, or the unknown value of the actual style page. So we have a lot of different items that could be valuable all across different spectrums of content. So let me know in the comments below. As always, we're doing our quick 3 giveaway drawings. Please just be subscribed. Second drawing will be for a random comment. And the person who's also liked the video, feel free to like and leave as many comments as you want to boost your odds. And the third thing is look for a hidden word be flashed upon the screen or put somewhere on a video description, title, or somewhere rather. So thank you guys one last time for watching. Have a great week, and I'll catch you later. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jakeclips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.